The Strand subclass being a thing in Destiny 2 now, the game is quite literally playing faster, and as a result, my normal sensitivity of 800 DPI, 3 in-game sense, is starting to feel too sluggish. So recently, yesterday, I took the monumental leap out of my comfort zone and more than doubled my sensitivity. But before I show you the results of the experiment, let me show you where my aim ended up at 3 sensitivity so you can compare where I'm at now with 7. So at 3 sensitivity on my best days, I'm close to perfect. But on my worst days, I wish I was just playing controller. So anyway, I switched to high sensitivity. I started with Wall Sense, which I believe is 1600 DPI with 4 in-game sense, and this was the result. Not jumping? There we go. Took your sweet ass time. There we go. I might be able to hit somebody if they're stationary. That was not meant to be. But that doesn't count. Nah, I'm just kidding. That was 100 sensitivity. I'm not even playing. It really does go up that high. Yeah, you could hear the surprise in my voice when I hit a shot on 100 cents, but ultimately what I ended up on is 800 DPI, 7 cents, and I switched off of 100, and this is what happened the next game. Yeah, I'm serious. So, like, I was hitting shots on 100, so... Speaking of... So I switched to 100 as a gag for this video, but realistically, that was the best thing I could have done, because in my opinion, it's all in your head. 3 felt good to me, then I switched to 7, and it felt way too fast, even after playing it for a couple hours. But just 3 games of having to use 100, then I swapped back to 7, it felt night and day. 7 felt like walking in quicksand, and something clicked in my head where all of a sudden, I started doing this. Okay.
Well, you're right, you're right. However,
you wanted to box that after, yeah.
Laser reaction killed me right there. To do nothing.
shit.
All of them are on C. Holy shit. Let's go. Yes!
Oh no.
Oh no. I got this. I'll clean up. I didn't clean up. I got stuck. It's like a...
Oh, hell yeah. Bullets. Yes. See you, dude. Yeah, see you, dude.
Oh my god, no, dude. Stop.
Oh, that's not it. It's noob. The noob needs a super soon. Have I gone to noob before? I have not. This could do it though.
Bro, off spawn.
That hit him. That's comedy.
That's comedy.
Is on the stump.
What are they doing on me?
Oh! You can tell from the highlights, I was hidden. But it wasn't all anime waifus and rainbows and circle clicking. There were a lot of missed shots. What I ultimately learned is that 3 sensitivity gave me the advantage of controlling recoil to a pinpoint level at max range. I just could not do that at 7 yet, but maybe one day I'll be close to that. What 7 did enable me is 360-degree tracking if it has to happen. So if a Strand Hunter grapples over me, there is a chance that I perfectly hit all yellow numbers the entire way around the world. Overall, this experiment was a success, and I probably am going to stick to higher sensitivity, but that doesn't mean I won't return to 3 if being a human turret is the meta again. Not that it was, but it was my personal meta. Now we're shifting to a full gameplay in the background. This was one of the last games that I played, and while that happens, I'm going to go ahead and describe some takeaways I have from this experiment overall. So first, let me describe how I aim with 3 sens. I use my entire arm for aiming and giant sweeps across my desk for 180, lift the mouse, place it down, and then re-aim, all in a fraction of a second. And in a first-person shooter, fractions of a second add up, and the gamer who can get there faster, not necessarily the more accurate one, can win in some gunfights. But where 3 sets itself apart from 7 is the ability to use your arm to put yourself in like a 15-degree radius to be a turret, and you manage your recoil with both your wrist and your fingertips while you aim primarily with your arm. And the combination of that gives you some crazy accuracy at distances that the developers do not account for. For the record, it's not impossible for a high sensitivity gamer to be precise, it's just really hard to be micro-precise at extreme distances. Now for the cons of low sensitivity, well, it's obvious, you're slower to do almost everything. But if they're within your 15-degree radius kill box, they're as good as dead. But as soon as they start using hyper movement, flying over your head with a grapple, shoulder charging the other direction, and making you miss one shot at a time, soon enough you'll be on an empty magazine and your 15-degree turret of death will not save you. To contrast this, playing higher sensitivity, in this case I was playing 7 with 800 DPI, speed is the name of the game. You are earning speed in a trade-off for maybe having worse accuracy. It's not a guarantee. You can just grind to have better aim. It just depends on the genre of the game, and in my opinion, with the addition of Strand, Destiny is now more akin to a movement shooter than a traditional arena shooter, which benefits from a more medium type of aim. I would say games like Counter-Strike and certain playstyles in Valorant maybe benefit from the slower sense where guns have specific recoil patterns, and you really do want to have that 15-degree kill box. But for movement shooters like Titanfall 2, where someone could be wall running above your head and building up a lot of momentum to fly across the screen, making sense of your environment and quickly snapping to targets is a borderline required skill. So now that you understand your aim type will have trade-offs, of course, maybe you might want to switch your sensitivity higher or lower, and let me tell you some tips that help me adjust very, very fast. The first of which was accidental, which is starting at 100 just to get you used to micro adjustments if you're used to a slow sense. Then switch to your real sensitivity, which in this case was 7 for me, and by comparison, it'll feel slow, which is good, because slow is control. What's the phrase? It's smooth, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, and there's some truth to that when it comes to aiming in an FPS game. Now for the next thing I'm going to say, I am not criticizing you. This is not me flaming you. I am going to say that hand cannons are kind of a crutch weapon for aiming, because you can be on target for 1 microsecond, then you can you can windshield wiper across the screen, but as long as you make it back to the head by the time the next bullet's ready to fire, your accuracy at the end of the game will still be 100%. If you're using an auto rifle or a submachine gun and you miss a single bullet, you can't windshield wiper because you're losing half of your time to kill doing that. So in other words, hand cannons allow you to be crazy with your movement because you can fill in the gap between shots with movement and still maintain great accuracy. So for that reason, I think you should not use hand cannons until you are very consistent in your aim so you can build better tracking habits, which coincidentally will make you a better hand cannon player too, because you can track when you need it and you can flick when you don't. Ideally, with the hand cannon, you still want to track your opponent because you will get flinched, and when you do, you want to be as close to your target as possible so the adjustment is easier, so the correction is easier. So if I had to write out a practice plan for making an adjustment to your sense, this is what it would be. Number 1, you play PvE on your new sense for a while until it feels somewhat normal. Then you shock your system with an extreme high sense like 50 to 100, something crazy where you really have to work just to move around, and play that for a couple games. Then you go back down to the new sense and it should feel slower by comparison. So this is when you start practicing hipfire tracking weapons exclusively. And you want to have good hipfire too, you don't want to throw that away. Remember, in Destiny 2, hipfire opens up your radar so you can make better sense of your environment. It's a bigger FOV, so you can do the same. And there are some extremely good weapons like Dead Man's Tale that is worth being able to hipfire accurately with. Then you want to practice aiming down sight tracking weapons like auto rifles and SMGs for a while. And then optionally, number 6, you want to use an aim trainer. Maybe Kovacs. I know Patty Cakes made a video on his Kovacs routine. Maybe take a look at that. Myself, I use Mick Osu, which is a first-person version of the popular circle-clicking game Osu, and I have a last word skin that makes it really funny. And then finally, just play normally. Get your normal hours in, and no Johns. Don't make an excuse if you lose a game like, oh, I just switched to a new sensitivity. No, this is your life now. Own it. It kind of goes without saying this is a mouse and keyboard video, but I do want to give some controller tips anyway because I know there's going to be that guy in the comment section, and this is the same across both mouse and keyboard and controller. The best sensitivity is the one you can hit your shots with. In my case, I haven't really tried that much high sensitivity, so I don't know if I can hit my shots yet on it. It took about a day for me to say, hey, this is possible. So this is where I'm going to sit for a while. On controller, I did the same thing. I went all the way up to 20 to shock the system, and I started going down. 12 was where it barely felt manageable, which meant with practice, I could do it correctly. However, controller has some unique qualities when it comes to Destiny 2, where some weapon archetypes stick to the target and register shots, whereas on M&K, you're lucky to even hit a body shot sometimes. So what I'm saying is, since the weapons function differently, I think you should build into that. It is much better to play a slow sensitivity on controller and be a turret with very powerful weapons than it is to have full sense of your surroundings and be able to bully a Strand Hunter that grapples in. It is not worth missing half your magazine in a normal gunfight in order to miss a quarter of your magazine on someone who flew over your head. It's just not. Some of the most accurate and strongest controller players have low sensitivity, like under 10. Some of them are around the 6, 7, and 8 range. Hell, there are Rumble players that are in the top 10 that have had 3 and 4 and 5 sensitivity. So I am telling you, on controller, it is better to be comfortable with your aim than to fly into a room and be able to do a 360. Some might argue that controller is borderline cheating because it aims for you, and to be honest, whether you think that or not, I don't. You need to abuse your input device, so that means you play a lower sense so that you can abuse friction and adhesion of the reticle so it sticks to your target with very minimal input by the user. If you tension the right stick or slightly move with the left stick, you will find that your reticle will start auto-tracking. Use that as an advantage and build your kit around that feature. It may sound rich coming from me. Some think of me as an established good mouse and keyboard player in this game to say that controller really isn't that big of a deal. Whereas if you're in the midline of M&K players, you might think controller is insurmountable. And if you look at tournament records and whatnot, yes, controllers do kind of run the show, but that doesn't mean M&K is invaluable. I would argue that a mixed team of like controller sniper with 1 or 2 M&K shotgunners is probably the sweet spot if you're trying to win a Destiny tournament. And I think out of all the games on the market, Bungie does a really good job between the 2 input balances. And I didn't want today's video to be about that, but I did want to throw a bone to the controller players who are looking to improve their aim. And the takeaway advice from that really is, slow it down until it's comfortable. And real talk, y'all shouldn't be fighting with each other in the comment section because now you have a common enemy. Both of y'all hate the Zimmers. The Zimmers are a emulated controller where you use a mouse and keyboard to control it at 20 sensitivity, so you can try to abuse the good features of controller aim assist with the 360 capabilities of a mouse and keyboard. Word on the street is that it is so effective that it is now running all the games in Destiny 2, tournament or not. And I don't even think some of them are running it optimally when they could be running custom software with it and really fine-tuning the advantages of controller with the freedom of mouse and keyboard. But I'm not going to dip my toes in that department because Bungie said they don't like third-party devices, and I will honor that. But if Destiny had more in-person tournaments and that type of thing was legalized, you would see a lot of people optimizing it as just a way to play to win, the same way that depending on the rules for a fighting game tournament, you bring the best controller, you bring the best device for the job. Until a tournament organizer bans it, then you just switch to the next best thing. It's just how it is. Again, that wasn't supposed to be the point of this video, but I did need to express it to get some ideas on the table, so don't read too much into that. Just forget about arguing about that in the comment section and pay attention to the background gameplay, where I unlock my Sword Art Online dual wielding skill, and the last word has finally recognized me as its true user, not Shin Malfur. That would have been comedy if that one tagged. That's right, Fallout plays. It's high noon.